You know, usually when we look at Beijing, we're looking for noise. We're
Mhm.
looking for massive military drills around Taiwan or wolf warrior diplomats yelling at press conferences. But looking at the stack of sources you and I went through this week, well, the loudest thing coming out of China right now is the silence.
It's a heavy silence,
Mm.
the kind that usually comes right before or maybe right after an earthquake. And in this case, the epicenter is Zhongyinhai.
The party's central headquarters. And the casualty at the center of this thing is a name that, honestly, until a week ago, most people outside of, deep defense circles probably didn't know. Zhang Youxia.
Which is wild because inside those circles, and definitely inside the Pentagon, Zhang Youxia wasn't just a name, he was the guy. He was the second most powerful man in the Chinese military.
So, okay, here's our mission for this deep dive. We have a vanished general, a purge that is just wiping out the top brass of the People's Liberation Army,
Hmm.
and this mystery document floating around the darker corners of the internet.
The open letter.
Yeah, an open letter that claims to explain everything. We need to figure out, did a coup actually happen in January 2026? Or did Xi Jinping just masterfully dismantle the only real threat left to his power?
It's the ultimate question, isn't it? Was this a coup from below that failed, or was it a coup from above that succeeded?
To answer that, I think we have to start with the who. Because reading through the profiles on Zhang Youxia, he isn't just another corrupt official getting caught with, like, a stash of gold bars in his basement. This
I,
feels different.
oh, it's completely different. This is personal. You have to understand the idea of the red second generation. In the Chinese Communist Party, bloodlines are, well, they're everything.
Okay.
Zhang Yuxia's father, Zhang Zongsun, and Xi Jinping's father, Xi Zongsun, were incredibly close comrades. They fought side by side in the revolution.
So these two grew up in the same bubble. They're basically childhood friends, or at least bound by this dynastic legacy.
Exactly. And that creates a bond that's supposed to be unbreakable. Zhang Yuxia was considered Xi's iron ally. He was the vice chairman of the Central Military Commission.
The CMC.
And that title really matters. Xi is the chairman, which is a political role.
Yeah.
Zhang was the vice chairman, which made him the highest-ranking uniformed soldier in the entire country.
And unlike Xi, Zhang actually has, gunpowder on his resume.
He does. He has actual combat experience from the Sino-Vietnamese War back in '79. He has literal scars. He led the assault on Laoshan. So when he walks into a room of generals, he has a kind of respect that political appointees just don't get. He's a soldier's soldier.
Which makes what happened on January 24th so shocking. The Ministry of National Defense releases this dry, bureaucratic statement. They announce investigations into Zhang Youxia and Liu Zhenli, who was the chief of joint staff, for serious violations of discipline.
Serious violations of discipline. It's the classic catch-all phrase.
Right, which usually means corruption. And state media is definitely painting it that way now. They're talking about forming cliques, about bribery. But looking at the timeline, the signs were there before the announcement. There's this incredible detail about a funeral wreath that I found fascinating.
It feels like something out of a mafia movie.
It really does.
It's all about the ritual of Chinese politics. Funerals for high-ranking officials are these highly choreographed events. Who sends flowers, where they're placed. It's like a public leaderboard of power.
So what happened?
Zhang Youxia sent a wreath to a senior figure's funeral. Standard stuff. But then witnesses reported the wreath was just physically removed, taken away before the ceremony even really started.
That is a public shaming.
It's a neon sign flashing to everyone in the room. This man is radioactive. Do not call him. Do not text him. He's already gone.
Okay, so the official charge is corruption. But we have these conflicting reports, and this is where the fog of war sets in. The Wall Street Journal had this bombshell report claiming Zhang was leaking nuclear secrets to the U.S.
Right.
But then, almost immediately, a pro-Beijing paper in Singapore comes out and basically debunks it. Why? Why the confusion?
It's what I call the traitor versus crook dilemma. Think about it from Xi's perspective. If you admit that your childhood friend, your iron ally, your #2 military guy, was a CIA asset, I mean, that is humiliating.
It makes you look like you have terrible judgment.
Exactly. It suggests the Americans have gotten to the highest levels of your inner circle. It's actually safer for the party's legitimacy to just say he was greedy. It makes him a criminal, which is manageable, not an ideological traitor, which is contagious.
But that ideological traitor angle brings us right to the centerpiece of this deep dive, the letter.
The open letter to Xi Jinping.
Now, we have to be incredibly careful here. I want to be really clear to you listening. This document appeared on Reddit. It's on YouTube. We cannot verify 100% that Zhang Youxia sat down at a laptop and typed this before he was arrested.
Correct. We have to treat the authorship with skepticism. It could be a forgery, it could be misinformation, but, and this is a big but, intelligence analysts are taking it very seriously. Because even if it's a fake, it's a highly sophisticated one, meaning it reflects the very real, very specific grievances that the military elite have been whispering about for years.
So it's almost like even if Zhang didn't write it, it's the manifesto of the opposition.
Precisely.
Okay, so let's crack this thing open. If we treat this letter as a window into the mind of the general staff, what's the headline?
The headline is a threat. It's basically, I could have ended you, but I didn't.
That's the coup claim.
Yes. The text explicitly claims that Zhang had the military capability, the troops, the loyalty to stage a coup against Xi. But he claims he chose not to avoid plunging China into a civil war. He frames himself as a martyr who chose national stability over his own survival.
It's a moral high ground play. I am the patriot, you're the tyrant. But what really struck me were the policy arguments in the letter. It's not just an emotional rant. It's a strategic critique, especially about Taiwan.
This is the part that has the intel community paying the most attention. The letter argues passionately against an invasion of Taiwan.
Which kind of goes against the common narrative we hear in the West, right? We assume the generals are the hawks pushing for war.
That's the Hollywood version.
Yeah.
The reality is often the opposite. Soldiers know what logistics look like. The letter argues an invasion would be a suicide mission. It cites specific issues, amphibious landings, supply chains. It argues that the U.S. and Japan would inevitably intervene.
It even mentions an analysis from another purge general, Liu Yazhu, right? Suggesting they couldn't take the island before the Chinese economy collapsed.
It connects the war directly to the wallet.
Mm.
The letter argues that the entire coastal economy, the engine of China, would be destroyed. Hundreds of thousands of casualties. It's a very pragmatic, almost cold-blooded assessment. We will lose, so don't do it.
And it couples that with this scathing attack on the Russian alliance. I was surprised by how blunt that part was.
Oh, it's brutal. The letter calls the Ukraine war meaningless. It argues that by tying China to Putin, Xi has alienated Europe, alienated Ukraine, and revitalized NATO. It basically says we have no friends left because of your obsession with Russia.
It paints this picture of total isolation. But there's a deeper structural critique in there too, right? About the way Xi runs the military. The CMC Chairman Responsibility System.
That's the root of it all.
It sounds like jargon, but it seems to be the core of the problem, according to the letter.
It is the core. In plain English, that system means Xi is the micromanager-in-chief. Every decision, every promotion goes through him. The letter argues this has turned the People's Army, which should serve the nation, into a private army.
A private army for one man.
Right. It describes a culture where officers are promoted based on how loudly they clap for Xi, not how well they can command a brigade. The letter even compares the applause at meetings to North Korea.
Wow.
It says the author felt disgusted and uneasy seeing these battle-hardened generals acting like sycophants.
That is a direct shot at Xi's ego. I mean, comparing him to the Kims in Pyongyang, that's lethal.
It is, and it accuses Xi of breaking the Badehi Consensus, which was this rumored backroom deal where he was supposed to step down in 2027 and share power. The letter is saying, you broke the deal, you ruined the army, you are leading us to a war we can't win.
So we have the motive, we have the confession in the letter, but did we have the means? The letter claims he could have staged a coup. Is there any evidence on the ground that something was actually moving, or is this just bluster?
This is where we get into the geography of power. We have to talk about the land army strategy. Zhang Youxia was known as the land army king.
Okay.
Over the last few years, sources suggest he had been placing his loyalists in very specific places, the Northern, Central, and Southern Theater Commands.
I was looking at the map. The Northern Command covers the area right around Beijing, doesn't it?
Correct. The Northern Command holds the keys to the capital. The Central Command is the strategic reserve. The theory, and it is just a theory, is that Zhang was orchestrating an encirclement of the Eastern Theater Command.
Which is the one based in Nanjing facing Taiwan.
Exactly. The Eastern Command is Xi's power base. That's the so-called Fujian gang, officers who owe their careers to Xi.
So the map of China was essentially split, the land army surrounding the Taiwan invasion force.
A geographical standoff. And in late January, we started seeing these weird, unverified reports, rumors of the 82nd Army mobilizing, Residents near Beijing reporting artillery fire at night.
And social media videos of military vehicles blocking roads into the city. I mean, it looked like something was happening.
And that ties into this Jade movement thing I keep seeing in the notes. It feels like a code. Can you break that down for us? Because I know puns in Chinese are a political blood sport.
Oh, they're essential. So there's been this resurgence of the Jade movement. The character for Jade is Yu, but there's another character, Fei, also linked to this. The key, though, is the character Yu, which also means feather.
Okay, feather. Stay with me here.
The Chinese character for Feather Yu is visually made up of two characters that look very similar to the character for she.
Huh.
So in this coded language, feather represents she. So when state media editorials suddenly start using phrases like shedding feathers.
They're not talking about birds. Shedding feathers is a coded way of saying getting rid of she. It's a dog whistle to everyone in the party who's unhappy. It implies a change in leadership.
That is Da Vinci Code level stuff.
Yeah.
But I guess in a high censorship environment, you have to communicate through puzzles.
You have to. And the biggest puzzle piece of all, and this is the one that really kept me up last night, is Hu Chunhua.
The discarded prince.
Yes. For listeners who don't follow the internal Politburo rankings, Hu Chunhua was supposed to be the successor years ago, the heir apparent. But when she consolidated power, he pushed Hu aside, humiliated him, basically.
And he's been totally silent since then.
Total silence,
Yes.
just trying to survive. Until January 24th, the exact moment the purge is happening in Beijing, Hu Chunhua suddenly pops up in the news. He's inspecting a school in Yunnan province, far away in the south.
And I saw the photos. He didn't look like a man who was terrified he was next on the list.
No. He looked relaxed, smiling even, which is incredibly rare for him. And then, just as quickly as the reports appeared, they were deleted, scrubbed from the
Well,
internet.
Why show him and then hide him? What's the strategy there?
The spare tire theory. The analysis suggests that the anti-Xi faction, or maybe even party elders worried about stability, moved him to the south as a backup government.
An insurance policy.
Exactly. Think about it. If the coup in Beijing turned into a shooting war, or if the central government collapsed, you have a legitimate leader, a man who should have been premier safe in the south, ready to step in and restore order.
That implies the situation in Beijing was incredibly fluid, that it wasn't just a simple police action. It was a moment where the whole system was on the edge.
It suggests that for about 48 hours the outcome was in doubt. You wouldn't activate the spare tire unless you thought the main engine might blow up.
But in the end, Zhang is gone, Lu's gone, she is still standing. So the coup, if there was one, failed. Or maybe it was a preemptive strike by Xi.
It looks like a preemptive strike that succeeded. She saw the encirclement, he saw the land army getting too strong, and he decapitated the leadership before they could act.
Yeah.
But, and this is the crucial part, this brings us to the dictator's dilemma.
You win the battle, but you lose the war.
Kind of. She has removed the last real check on his power. Zhang Youxia was the last person in the room who could say no to him because of their family history. That voice is gone. The sources describe an atmosphere of just total fear in Beijing now.
And we know what happens in systems built on fear. The intelligence gets back.
Correct. It creates a single point of failure. The entire system now depends on the health, the sanity, the judgment of one man. If she decides to invade Taiwan based on bad intel, there is no Zhang Youxia left to say, "Sir, we don't have the fuel for that." There is no one to pump the brakes.
That's terrifying because it actually increases the risk of a war, even if the military itself knows it's a bad idea.
It does. I mean, look at the Central Military Commission now. Who's left? It's basically she and a political commissar. The actual combat leadership, the guys who know how to move tank divisions and run logistics, they've all been purged.
The sources use the term hollowed out.
That's the perfect term. The letter warned about this. It said the army is becoming a private army, loyal to a person, not the country. And history tells us that private armies are great for parades. They look fantastic marching in Tiananmen Square. But they are terrible at winning complex modern wars.
So let's bring this back to the listener. Why should someone commuting to work in London or New York care about a general in Beijing they'd never heard of until 20 minutes ago?
Because the brake pads are gone. We're talking about the world's second largest economy and a nuclear superpower. If the internal stability of the Chinese military is crumbling, or if the leadership is operating in an echo chamber of fear, the chances of a catastrophic miscalculation just skyrocketing.
It's not just palace intrigue. It's your iPhone supply chain. It's the stock market. It's global peace.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If the driver is speeding and he's thrown the navigator out of the car and he's only looking at a map he drew himself, well, everyone in the back seat should be very worried.
That is a sobering image.
It is. It means the predictability of Chinese foreign policy just went out the window. We're in a much more volatile phase now.
As we wrap up, I just keep going back to that image of Hu Chunhua, the spare tire successor, smiling in Yunnan while all this was going down in Beijing.
It haunts me too.
It makes you wonder, if the purge was a total victory for the leader, why was the successor hidden away? And why does the ghost of this letter continue to haunt the internet?
In the letter, Zhang supposedly wrote a line that sticks with me.
Yeah.
Even if you win, there's a higher power watching. History will tell the truth.
Is the silence in Beijing right now a sign of stability? Or is it just the eye of the storm? Something to think about. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll be watching the silence closely.
Stay curious.
See you next time.